Betty. So my presentation is on Douglas Tilden. He was an artist, more specifically a sculptor. Most of his sculptures were in bronze. He was born in 1860 and died in 1935. So Douglas Tilden is best known as the father of sculpture in California, as he was the first California native sculptor recognized and became famous outside of the United States. He also lobbied for the rights of deaf citizens, more specifically in San Francisco, due to the fact that he lived in the Bay Area most of his life. He helped organize and was the vice president of the International Congress of the Deaf in 1889, among other things. So he was born May 1st, 1860, in Chico, California. He was born hearing. He had actually lost his hearing and speech at the age of 4 when he contracted scarlet fever. He remained deaf and mute throughout his entire life. At the age of 5, he was one of the first students that attended the California School for the Deaf, originally in San Francisco, and by the time he graduated, the campus was then in Berkeley. So from 1866 to 1879, he was at CSD as a student. Right after graduation, he was accepted at UC Berkeley, and almost right away, he was offered and accepted a teaching position also at UC Berkeley. He was there about 8 years, from 1979 to 1887. So in the summer of 1883, Douglas Tilden was introduced to sculpture by another artist named Frances Marion Wells. A few years later, in 1885, Tilden made his first small model out of plaster. Pictured here, the tired wrestler. It caught the attention of a lot of people, including his alma mater, CSD, and they decided to fund Tilden and his further art studies. A little bit in New York and then in Paris. So Tilden spent about a little less than a year, about 8 months in New York before moving to Paris. And in 1888, while in Paris, he studied under an infamous deaf sculptor, Paul Chopin. So there in Paris, in Europe, Tilden won many art contests, sculpting contests. He really made a name for himself, became famous, and had his work installed all over the world. So in 1893, Tilden decided to return back to California, and CSD offered him a teaching position, which he accepted, and he taught there for 3 years. And in 1896, things changed. He decided to marry Elizabeth Cole, a woman named Elizabeth Cole, and wanted to leave teaching to pursue sculpting full-time, be an artist full-time. However, there was a huge misunderstanding or miscommunication because CSD paid for Tilden and his extended art schooling. They really felt like he owed them more for his tuition and backing him. He didn't feel that way. So really never coming to an agreement or an understanding. Ultimately, the school confiscated one of his statues, the sculpture here that I have a picture of, the bear hunt. They confiscated his payment for his tuition. So the sculpture is currently and still displayed on the CSD campus in Fremont. The original intent was for the statue. Tilden wanted the statue to be at the state capitol in Sacramento. So kind of an interesting misunderstanding, I guess, in history. So as a working artist in the Bay Area, Tilden befriended the mayor of San Francisco. He was also a fan, apparently, of Tilden's work, and appointed him to the City Beautification Committee, which that meant he was commissioned for 3 bronze statues to memorialize California. The first one was Admission Day, and it's a statue that commemorates California into the Union. The second was the Mechanics Monument, which is pictured here. And it was dedicated to a man named Peter Donahue. He was the founder of the San Francisco and Northern Pacific Railroad. And the third one was called California Volunteers. And that one was commemorating California volunteers in the Spanish-American War. So these three bronze statues, they're large, and they are still on public display today. All of them are on Market Street in San Francisco if you're interested in seeing that. So Tilden was very active for the deaf community, a big activist. So in 1889, he helped organize and was elected VP of the International Congress of the Deaf. He also proposed a bill to fight oralism. He helped organize the California Association of the Deaf. He drafted the Constitution and the bylaws for that organization. So today, Tilden is remembered as the father of sculpture in California due to the fact that most of his sculptures in California are displayed publicly still. A lot of them, like I said, are in San Francisco, Berkeley, Hayward, Oakland. There are very few outside of the state. There are some in Oregon and a few in museums in Washington, D.C. But for the most part, sculptures are still in the San Francisco Bay Area. So if you're ever there, there's a list of them on like Wikipedia. You can check them out. They are quite spectacular. Lots of detail in his work. So I enjoyed researching him immensely. Thank you.